Hello and welcome to week 8 of our online well-being class organized by LEXSA Student Association. Today I have prepared 2 videos for you. In the first video, which is this one, we will talk about the 16 personality types from the perspective of stress management, and we will also engage in a few short exercises. In video 2, there is an opportunity to connect with yourself through conscious dancing, followed by a period of silent meditation afterwards. And for those of you who are interested in drawing and art therapy, there will be an optional art therapy task at the end of this video. And now we will dive into the 16 personality types. Some of you may already be familiar with this method of self-reflection, and you may already know your type, while others may have never heard of it before. For those who can't wait to take the test, you can immediately visit www.16 as the number, personalities.com and answer the questions to determine your type. But we will also go through the 8 different functions in this video that make up your type, and you can take the test afterwards. Regardless, I will briefly show you the website. Yep, so just here, 16personalities.com. And here you have an overview of the personality types. The analysts, there's 4 different types, the diplomats, sentinels, and explorers. And you can see that they all have a 4-letter abbreviation. And I'm going to explain to you what they mean in just a bit. And on this side here, you can take your test. The test is fairly accurate and gives you quite a generous explanation of your type, which for some of you may be really helpful. You can test yourself to gain some more clarity about potential professions or the way that you process information, the way you learn. And yeah, it's a really great method of self-reflection, and it's also quite useful when it comes to stress management. Those of you who already know their type, no problem at all. You can just follow along and use this as an opportunity to self-reflect. Yeah, so as I said before, you can either go to the site now and take the test or do it at a later time and try to decipher what personality type you are by following along with me. And whether or not you already know your type, I would like to say a few words about the 8 different functions that generate your type profile, and also reflect on them in the context of stress management. So these 8 different functions are abbreviated by 8 different capital letters. We have a capital I for introversion, a capital E for extroversion, an S for sensing, which is also called observant, N for intuition, capital T for thinking, capital F for feeling, capital P for prospecting. Sometimes you may also see it as perceiving, and a capital J for judging. And these 8 functions are compared in 4 different groups to determine whether you're mostly an introvert or extroverted, meaning that using mostly your introverted or extroverted function, as we of course have both of them. Every single person has both of them. And this test will also determine whether you are a sensor or intuitive, or whether you primarily use your logical thinking ability or your capacity to feel when you make decisions, and also whether you plan your life by way of judging or prospecting. And I will explain what this means in just a moment. And While we all utilize all of these 8 functions, most people really do have a marked preference for one function of each pairing. And sometimes, of course, individuals feel that they are utilizing both functions equally strong, so it's definitely a good idea to take the test on 16personalities.com to determine really which one is your marked preference. This kind of test gives you also a percentage indicator out of 100%. So you may gain a little bit more clarity if you're not coming up with a clear result at the end of this video. Okay, so we will begin by looking at extroversion versus introversion. Many people have the, I would say, misconception that introversion means shyness. That is not very accurate, as extroverts can display significant shyness and social anxiety due to their dependency on a social network, in person and probably online. Extroverts usually feel energized by other people, and they get bored when they spend a lot of time by themselves. They say now that the estimated number of extroverts is between 50 and 75% of the population. So definitely a majority of the population is extroverted. And you may ask yourself, well, how do I know if I am an extrovert? Well, if you are, you're most likely very interested in engaging with your environment and with other people, particularly in group activities. And you may get easily excited and enthusiastic in a way that's also really infectious for other people and could potentially lift the mood in a general social gathering or party or any kind of group activity. You may also really feel bored when you have to spend a lot of time by yourself, which for extroverts, lockdown periods are maybe not very much fun or beneficial for their emotional well-being, unless they find ways to really connect with other people online or through the phone or in any other way, maybe in their household if you're living with people in a share house. It's really important to maintain social contact and social interaction. Extroverts usually direct their energy outwards to initiate action. So they're very active in the world, and they also navigate the world by way of talking. So by sharing who they are with the world quite directly, and also seeking validation and confirmation from the world around them. And it's most likely you can recognize an extrovert after they had a long workday or study day. They would be the type of people who would be really comfortable spending time, going for a drink with other people, spending time with other people, even though they are really tired and exhausted, because they do get energized by the companies of others. And they are the kind of people also who wouldn't mind having a big birthday party or being part of a larger social gathering, and would most likely have a lot of different social interactions with a lot of different people, and not just sit in a corner and talk to the 3 people that they know. And as extroverts really rely on social interactions so heavily, it can be quite uncomfortable, first of all, if they are forced to reduce their social interaction, like during lockdown, or if they also talk to someone who is not very engaging. And there can be a fear of having awkward moments of silence, or of if somebody doesn't have a lot of confidence and is an extrovert, there can be a lot of self-conscious behavior in the way that they're feeling very insecure in a social setting, or are not really as outgoing as the normal extroverts around them. Extroverts who have had a healthy sense of communicating and who feels self-assured in who they are. So anybody who has a lot of self-doubts, and it doesn't have to be an introvert, it can be an extrovert as well. And for them, that will be very detrimental, because communicating with others and spending time with others is such an important part of who they are. Yeah, much more a people person. So if any of these comments that I just mentioned resonate with you, you're most likely an extrovert. Now, even though you may be an introvert, it doesn't mean that you can never use your extroverted function. Some introverts are mistaken for extroverts because they can be quite social in public, but then they will definitely go home afterwards and recharge, while extroverts don't really need to recover from social interaction as much. So introverts really prefer activities in solitude. They do get exhausted by social interaction, and they're usually more reserved and need to spend a lot of time by themselves. And time spent alone for them is usually also much more interesting than time spent with other people. And that's partly because they're very sensitive to their environment, and definitely would find a big party very exhausting and potentially prefer reading a book by themselves at home, or yeah, doing any kind of work in solitude. So introverts usually have a few close but very deep relationships with other people, whereas extroverts would rather have a larger social networks. I don't want to say of superficial contacts, but the relationships do not necessarily have to have an intimate level of depth. Introverts also need a lot of time to recharge and to withdraw in their inner world, to reflect, and to use their powers of imagination. And having to communicate with the outside world can really interfere with an introvert's creativity and with their process of recharging and refreshing their energy. So if you are living with an introvert, extroverts especially have to become more aware that introverts really do need their time by themselves, and that if they take that time, that it is nothing personal, that it is not that they're rejecting an extroverted personality. It really is an essential quality time that introverts are seeking. And also introverts have to understand about extroverts that extroverts are just naturally more inclined to interact, and they do not get a recharging of energy when they are alone. They really do need other people for that. So, and hence introverts are much more introspective, and because of that also quite insightful. Yeah, life for introverts can be extremely difficult, as society and also many professions really reward and favor extroverts. And for those of you who haven't taken the test yet, or who don't know their personality type, you can write down the capital letter E on a piece of paper if you're an extrovert, and the capital letter I if you feel that you are definitely an introvert. And if you are unsure after hearing what I just described, you can also just write both letters down, just to keep that as a record, that it may be fairly even in the way how you utilize both of these functions. Usually it is in an extreme stress situation, when you had a really long study day or work day, it becomes quite clear which your primary function is, whether you seek time to recharge by yourself or whether you are drawn to other people, and kind of try to energizing yourself and lighten yourself up with other people. And we will now do a short exercise for which you can close your eyes. And this exercise is to support the extroversion function. And I will ask you to feel your energy field around you, or to mentally draw a radius of 1.5 meters around you. And we are going to expand this radius up to 2 meters on each side, to the front, back, left and right, and then to 2.5 meters, moving it a bit further out, to the front, left, right, back, and then to 3 meters on each side. If you happen to be an extrovert, you may find it easy to expand your energy field further out around you, and you possibly find it quite easy to expand the circle around the entire planet. And if that is easy for you, you can try that as a regular meditation technique, simply sitting with the eyes closed while focusing on your expanded circle around you. And if it is easy to move the circle outwards, make it as big as you can. And if it is not so easy, just choose a comfortable radius around you from 1.5 meters onwards. And for introverts, this technique is quite useful if you tend to isolate yourself too much in your inner world and you feel like you want to disengage completely from social interaction. And if this is the case, you can practice this radius exercise meditation with a radius that feels comfortable for you, so that you do not narrow your energy field inwards too much, and you find it a little bit easier to keep interacting with the world. And yeah, just choose a radius that is comfortable, and while sitting with your eyes closed, just focus on this radius around you, just observing the radius. And yeah, remaining in silence during this process. So that's a good technique to kind of expand your energy field and to engage with the space around you, which is something that extroverts usually have a much easier time with. And now, if you haven't already done so, you can open your eyes and we will move on to the next category, which is sensing versus intuition. So people who are sensors, or they are sometimes also called observers, these people make up about 70% of the population. And if you are a sensor or / observer, you may mostly rely on your 5 senses to gather information from your environment. And you would also verify what you know with facts and personal experiences that you've had, and kind of come to understand about life in a very, very grounded in reality approach. So sensors / observers are usually quite practical, pragmatic, down to earth, and usually completely disregard insubstantial thought or concepts that are not based in reality and that are too far out there. So sensors are really, really focused on this world, utilizing all of their 5 senses to absorb this world, and they see the world in the way that it is and not in a way it seems, or in the way that they personally want to interpret it. So sensors usually are focused on the present moment, and they find it harder to see the bigger picture and look at life beyond their present day reality. So this is why sensors are very, very interested in hands-on work, in tangible results, in getting ahead, and especially in career, to really, really have this success-driven, goal-driven, solution-focused approach, and attend to flaws that they see right in front of them, fixing problems that are there right in front of them, That's usually the doers in society, the people who get their hands dirty and who, really deal with daily life problems and who derive their knowledge from their external world and their inspiration also from their external world. Now, 30% of the population are intuitives, and these individuals would mostly rely on their sixth sense, and they receive impulses and inspiration not from their external environment, but from a place that they cannot really see. And usually intuitives completely trust the information that they intuitively feel more than, let's say, facts they can verify in their environment. So intuitives are usually big picture thinkers who can connect dots between seemingly unrelated events and topics, who are much more conceptual than sensors, and who are much more concerned with their own interpretation of the world than with how the world realistically really is. And intuitives tend to edit out parts of their perception that they're not really interested in, and sort of omit details that don't really fit into their own frame of reference. And intuitives really tend to use their imagination to explore possibilities and perhaps very interesting dimensions of life, which is why they're not very practical and often quite future-oriented and have trouble with being present in the here and now, which sensors usually are always. So if you are feeling that you are a sensor, you write down a capital S. And if you feel that you are an intuitive, I would suggest you write down a capital N. And that makes the second category of the 16 personality type test to determine whether you are indeed relying much more on your sensing function or your intuitive function. And that being said, intuition in general is very highly represented in artists, in psychics for sure, in people who do any kind of energy healing work, and philosophers, sort of professions that are also a little bit vague and not really focused on the here now. And just because you are a sensor, it of course doesn't mean that you wouldn't use your intuition at all. Of course, everybody has access to intuition, and intuitives also are able to perceive the world through their 5 senses, but they do not rely on their 5 senses to come to their own conclusion. They use mostly their 6th sense. So yeah, if you're a sensor, write down a capital S, and if you're an intuitive, write down a capital N. And we are going to do a short exercise for which you can close your eyes. And this exercise is suitable for the support of the sensing function. And it is helpful for intuitives who feel like they're drifting off into their inner realms, or perhaps daydreaming too much and forget being present in reality. And I call it the 5 senses Kickstart game, which really is focused on making you more present and connecting you with your 5 senses. First of all, we will just test our 5 senses, and you can open your eyes again briefly and just look around your room or whichever place you are right now, and choose just something interesting to look at, and then also angle your upper body in the direction where you see something that's sort of pleasant to look at. For example, if you look out of the window and you see maybe some greenery, or down the street, just turn your chair facing that direction. And then you can close your eyes again. And if you don't have a good window view, perhaps you have a nice flower pot in your room or a poster, and just face in that direction. And if you are outside, you may find a pleasant looking tree or a flower bed somewhere. And just face the direction and position yourself accordingly, and so that the next time you open your eyes, you will directly look at this. And now you can close your eyes again, and we will focus now on listening. Just activate your ears. Just become aware of all the sounds that you're hearing. And now just connect the tips of your index fingers with your thumb. And focus on the connection bit between your index finger and thumb tip. Focus on the touch sensation between those two fingers. This happens to be also the root chakra mantra that you can use for meditation. So it's really, really good to focus in on this touch sensation. And now focus on your tongue and your mouth. And see if you can taste your mouth, even via through the tasting of saliva, or by lifting your tongue to the top of your mouth, trying to taste the top, the roof of your mouth, really feeling the texture and trying to taste what flavor it is without judging whether it is good or bad. And then we are going to focus on our nostrils and smell our environment. Taking a really deep breath in and really, really absorbing the smell of the place where we are right now. This sequence in a slow format is good to do if you are anywhere feeling that you're drifting off. Just go through all of your 5 senses to reconnect with the present moment, to become mindful again, and really, really ground yourself in your body. And this game can also be done quite quickly if you really want to activate your sensory awareness. So we are still closing our eyes, and on command, open your eyes and close. Now listen. Touch index finger and thumb. Let go. Taste your mouth. And smell. Now listen. Open your eyes. Close. Touch your fingers. Smell. Open your eyes and close. Listen. Taste your mouth. Smell. Open your eyes and close. Touch your fingers. Smell. Taste your mouth and listen. And now you can open your eyes and turn back to the screen. This is a really good little game to bring you back into the present moment. Of course, it works better if you have a little lolly or something nice to sip on, some juice perhaps, to activate your taste buds better. And in the context of mindfulness, every time you're eating, it's really, really important to smell your food, to really taste your food, to chew very slowly, to utilize your sensation of touch if you're touching your food, to look at what you're eating, to listen to the sound of your chewing, to really become conscious when you're eating. Okay. Now our third category is thinking versus feeling. And although we all think and we all feel, and this test is also not an indicator of IQ or EQ, most of us do have a preference which function we utilize when making decisions. So if you are a thinker, you will make decisions mostly based on logic or objective criteria, sort of a bit like a scientific approach towards life, an approach that filters out emotions most of the time. Not that you don't feel emotions, but you do not base your decision making on emotions. And a thinker usually will ask more, is this true or false? And be more detached, verifying information. And they usually communicate very honest and tend to feel that being right or accurate is much more important than being liked or taking other people's feelings into account. And that efficiency really is more important than being able to cooperate peacefully. Thinkers usually seek to understand cause and effect. And yeah, this in terms, it is really much more a scientific approach. And 60% of men and 25% of women are thinkers. And which is a little bit different to how feelers operate. And feelers tend to use more subjective criteria and choose outcomes sort of with an objective of making others around them happy, or at least with the intention of not rocking the boat too much. People and relationships tend to be here the primary subject matter, and feelers usually can be influenced by friends or really have the primary concerns for other people at the forefront of their mind. Feelers are very empathic. They usually absorb emotions of other people and project their emotion outwards, and are usually expressing their own personal values and tend to wanting to be true to themselves. Ultimately, it's a very, very heart-centered approach, and feelers are fairly sensitive people who are emotionally expressive. They also tend to be less competitive than thinkers, more caring, more compassionate, and much, much warmer towards other people. 40% of men are feelers and 75% of women. So if you think that you are a thinker, or if you feel that you're a feeler, the thinkers write down a capital T and the feelers a capital F, which concludes the third category of the personality test. And it is quite important in terms of the stress management perspective for thinkers to develop a little bit more emotional warmth and compassion towards other people in order to avoid being too cold, and also to be too out of touch with their own emotions. And for feelers to engage in a lot of emotional self-care and really set healthy boundaries so that there is emotional respect upheld in their own lives. And we will do another little feeling exercise for which we will close our eyes for a moment. And yeah, this exercise engages with the feeling function. Just become aware of your beating heart. Just hone in on your heart area and see if you can hear or sense the beating of your heart. And then allow yourself to focus on the center of your chest, your heart chakra, creating a sense of warmth. And then focus on your arms, the inside of your arms, all the way downwards to your hands, just connecting. And we are going to imagine that we open our arms up wide towards a trusted, loving person, which can be real or imagined, someone you may know or someone you don't know. And opening our arms towards this person, while this person also opens their arms towards us. And we are in our imagination becoming aware of the other person's chest area, the beating of their heart, the warmth of their heart chakra, and mentally, emotionally, energetically connecting your heart, your own heart, to the heart of this other person, forming a connection of light. And once you are connected, move towards each other for a deep, warm, and nurturing hug. Allowing your chest to touch the other person's chest, to create warmth in between you. And just stay in this hug for a moment and allow the love to flow from the other person to you and from you to the other person. And if you feel that you have difficulties doing that, just go as far as it's possible for you, and see if you can slowly let your walls down a bit, soften your heart space a little bit, so that any hardness or guard around your heart can be melted away in this embrace. And just wait until you feel nurtured and connected. And then dissolve this hug with gratitude and return back to the present moment. This exercise is very beneficial for anyone who is not in touch with their feelings or who may lack compassion for other people. And now we're going to move on to our last category, judging versus perceiving or prospecting, which is divided 50-50 amongst the population. If you are a judger, and perhaps judging as a word is a little bit misleading here, judges love to be organized and functional and have usually a good sense of order. They prefer to operate with a very structured approach, usually are planners with to-do lists, who make firm decisions and who usually don't waver from them, and have their own sort of internal mental checklists and probably at least 5 backup plans in the extreme case. Preparing things in advance and liking to stick to what they have prepared on. So judges have difficulties in adapting to very changing circumstances, don't really like surprises as much, especially when they do change what they have prepared and planned, as judges tend to set very specific goals and can be very, very rigid and stressed if they have to change their plans unexpectedly. And at the moment, I would say that during lockdown, with these last minute notifications. Judges may feel a little bit uncomfortable or stressed if they have made plans and if they have really planned ahead for their week and now have to change and adapt to COVID restrictions. That can be a big source of stress for people of the judging type, or who use judging as their primary function. So the recommendation there is to make a different plan, a much more general plan, highlighting the things that you want to accomplish in general. You can put there on your list health, self-care, relaxation, meditation, accomplishment. Just loosen the rigidity of your plans, and maybe at the moment make your to-do lists starting with a more general thing, and then you can fine-tune on individual goals within this overarching goal, but start a little bit more general with your list and don't set a strict time limit on it. Learning how to be a little bit more flexible and a bit more relaxed would be really, really, really helpful for the emotional and mental well-being of a judging personality type. And judges usually have quite a strong work ethic and are quite responsible. So there usually are never really any concerns of getting projects finished or meeting deadlines. Judges usually live up to their own standards, no matter how high they are. If you are a prospector or perceiver, you may be somebody who prefers to go with the flow, who values spontaneity and flexibility, somebody who's very good at spotting opportunities as they come along, and somebody who may prefer to keep their options open and could, in a conversation, potentially jump from one topic to the next rather quickly. An element of chaos or lack of plan is usually quite exciting for prospectors and quite stimulating, because they don't know exactly yet what is happening. While judges derive a really great sense of security and well-being from the things they have prepared for their future and the things that they have planned, like all the ducks lined up, prospectors will find that very, very restricting and can actually not stick to any plan, even if they would come up with one, because they just flow with life and respond to the present moment and situation, which sometimes can also lead to impulsive decision-making or potentially getting overwhelmed by too many options, which can lead to indecision because no clear plan has been laid out, no overarching, step ladder of goals. Prospectors usually have also trouble focusing for longer periods of time because they are rather taking their cues from their immediate environment. So we can really say that while judges really like to follow regulations or the rules that they have set out for themselves, prospectors are kind of like relaxed nonconformists in this way, liking to take things as they come and then being able to adjust in any present moment which new direction they're going to take, whereas judges have planned it out for the most part. So each one of these functions really benefits from the other. Prospectors and perceivers will benefit from making a plan from time to time and to follow through and meet deadlines, whereas judges will benefit from being a bit more open-minded, a bit more flexible and less rigid. So if you feel that you are using your judging function primarily, or your judging type, you can write down a capital J. And if you feel that you are definitely a prospector, you can write down a capital P. And for judges who are stressed a lot during these current lockdown restrictions that may have altered plans of high importance, I really recommend that you do some exercises that loosen up any kind of rigidity, whether you just go out in nature a little bit and absorb some of the natural momentum of well-being that is present in nature, or whether you perhaps partake in some dance practice that loosens you up, which you can also do in videos too, as we will have some conscious dance practice followed by silent meditation. So now you got all of your 4 letters that make up the 16 personality types. And if you are undecided, you can take the test at 16personalities.com and then read about your type and perhaps reflect on yourself and how much this applies to you, and also what it means to you in regards to how you respond to stress. And sometimes we will find that our 4 dominant functions, so our 4-letter functions, that they find enough expression and are sort of in a state of well-being. And sometimes we will find that some of these functions are underexpressed or even overexpressed, which can really lead to an increase in stress levels and be also the result of a lack of inner balance that we are trying to compensate with our primary functions in an obsessive or unhealthy way, or in a neglectful, lack of self-care kind of way. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed this discourse. And for our art therapy exercise today, I am inviting you to explore introversion versus extroversion by dividing a horizontal A4 or A5 page in half, drawing a vertical line. And in one half, I'm asking you to represent your extroverted function, your social interaction with others, which for extroverts is the primary function, and for introverts, it's their secondary function. So no matter whether you are an introvert or extrovert, just on one side, draw your extroverted function. And you can do that in any way you want, by painting some sort of picture, using symbols, self-portrait, colors, doodles, really anything goes here. And on the second half of the page, draw your introverted function, which is the primary function for introverted personalities, and represent your alone time and your inner world in whichever way you like. And once you have completed both sides, I'm asking you to reflect which side is happier than the other, and to explore what changes you may need to make to increase the well-being level of the unhappier side. Thank you very much for watching. Happy drawing. And if you haven't taken the test yet, go and take the test, not the COVID test, the 16 personality type test for today. And yes, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will continue now with video 2 with conscious dance and meditation practice. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.